Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for Monday, July 28th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. When we go over my core picks, it's going to be 5 players in total, 1 pitcher, 4 hitters. That's going to be based on a combination of past performance versus the respective opponent, as well as some recent history. And then after that, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for Monday's slate overall. And then in the morning, I'll be listing my early morning weather report that I have any game that does have a double-digit chance of rain or higher. And then I'll also be listing as many of these starting lineups as I can get to throughout the afternoon and early evening. So definitely make sure that you are checking up down there so that you do have the most up-to-date and relevant information as possible, especially as we do head into lock. But without further ado, we'll get right into it with the core picks. We're going to start off with that pitcher position. There are a lot of viable pitchers out there today. I ultimately ended up on Luis Castillo. He's $9,600. Reasonable price tag for him, averaging just under 30.5 fantasy points per game on the season. He is going against the Athletics, and he has really good history versus the Athletics in the past, outside of like Shea Langeliers, who's like 5 for 17 versus him. So, not the greatest right there, but everybody else he's done very well against. And he won start versus the Athletics earlier this year. He only had 21 points. That was earlier on in the season, probably colder weather where Luis Castillo is not quite as good. And then last year he had 2 starts versus them, 34 and 46 points. And then if we look at what he's done so far in the season, he's got 7 wins. ERA's at 3.3. Once again, averaging just under 30.5 fantasy points per game at $9,600. Definitely do like the upside of him, but there are quite a few pitchers out there that do have some pretty strong upside, but you're paying up a little bit more for those guys. Christopher Sanchez is obviously one, but as he is at the most expensive price tag at $10,900, very attractive matchup versus the Chicago White Sox, and he's been pitching really well as of late, so definitely be another one that I would consider. But for the purposes of this lineup, one somebody that was a little bit cheaper just in general. Then we're going to move down to second base with Luis Ariz. He's at $2,900, averaging just over 8.5 fantasy points per game. He is going against the New York Mets. Frankie Montas is the expected starting pitcher for them. He is 6 for 9 versus Frankie Montas in his career. And if we look at what Luis Ariz has done as of late, he's on a 10-game hitting streak, 5 multi-hit games during that time span, 0 home runs, 4 double-digit performances, and 6 games with at least 9 fantasy points or higher. So does offer a relatively safe floor. Upside might be a little bit more capped, but definitely do like Luis Ariz, whether you choose to play him at first base or second base. Probably going to go the second base option since you want a little bit more upside out of your first baseman, typically just in general. But if we look at what he's done so far in the season, 291 batting average, 5 home runs, 39 RBIs, averaging just over 8.5 fantasy points per game at $2,900. Then we move down to third base with Alex Bregman, $3,300, starting to look the part once again, starting to look healthier at this point in time, and he's averaging just under 12 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against the Minnesota Twins' Simeon Woods Richardson, and he has 2 for 5 with 1 home run versus him in the past, so definitely has some good history there at that. And if we look at what Alex Bregman's done as of late, he's on a modest 3-game hitting streak, 1 multi-hit game during that time span, 1 home run, 2 double-digit performances, and 3 games of 9 fantasy points or higher. So he's starting to turn that corner once again. The numbers on the season are really good overall. 298 batting average, 13 home runs, 41 RBIs. Once again, averaging just under 12 fantasy points per game at $3,300. Then we move down to shortstop with Francisco Lindor. He's at $3,500, and he's another guy that's averaging just under 12 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against San Diego Padres. Dylan Cease is the expected starting pitcher for them, and he's 4 for 12 with 3 home runs in his career versus Dylan Cease. So some pretty good history there, some pretty good power potential. He's on a modest 3-game hitting streak as we do speak. 2 multi-hit games during that time span, 1 home run, and 2 double-digit performances. So definitely do like what Francisco Lindor has been able to do as of late. And on the season, he's got a 252 batting average, 20 home runs, 58 RBIs, once again averaging just under 12 fantasy points per game at $3,500. And then last but not least, we're going down to the outfield with Adolis Garcia. Is up to $3,000 at this point in time, averaging just over 9 fantasy points per game. He is going against Los Angeles Angels, and at this point in time, it does look like Jack Conkowitz is the expected starting pitcher for them. That could be subject to change. If that changes like in the morning throughout the day, we'll leave a note down in the comment section below. But if it is Conkowitz, he's got a really good history versus him in the past. 3 for 6 with 2 home runs. He's on a 3-game hitting streak as we do speak. However, no multi-hit games, no home runs during that time span, but he does have 2 double-digit performances. And if you go back even further, I know I mentioned Adolis Garcia as a core pick a couple days ago. I believe that was on Friday, where he had at least 1 hit in 12 out of his last 15 games. Obviously, you got the 3-game hitting streak on top of this, so definitely been doing better as of late after that slow start to the season. He's up to a 231 batting average, 14 home runs, 59 RBIs, once again averaging just over 9 fantasy points per game at $3,000. But with that being said, if you go the 5 players that I do currently have here, you have $12,700 remaining, just under $3,200 remaining per player. So probably a little bit more of a balanced build the rest of the way from here. Obviously, stacks will play a pretty big role just in general. It's a larger Monday slate than we typically see, so definitely feel free to mix and match in terms of those stacks. But with that being said, we'll get moving over to my cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for Monday's slate overall. So we're going to start off with the Texas Rangers. Once again, as I mentioned with Adolis Garcia, Jack Conquin's technically listed as the expected starting pitcher at this point in time for the Angels. We'll see whether or not that sticks by the time we get to lock, but if it is him, a lot of these hitters have hit him really well in the past, so definitely feel free to mix and match a ton of Rangers bats into your lineup. Then we're going to move over to the Houston Astros. They're going against, I believe it's Brad Lord for the Washington Nationals. They got no history versus him in the past. It's like his second start being stretched out. Should be a pretty attractive one for the Astros just in general. Then we move over to the Boston Red Sox, and they're going against Simeon Woods Richardson. Not really much history there in the past. Very, very limited. Really just Alex Bregman who has that track record versus him. So I definitely do like getting Alex Bregman and taking on some shots in the rest of their Red Sox lineup as well. And then last but not least, we have the Philadelphia Phillies. They're going against the Chicago White Sox. Davis Martin is the expected starting pitcher for the Chicago White Sox, and very limited history versus him in the past. It's really just Max Kepler who's faced him before, but definitely do love the upside of that Phillies lineup just in general. But with that being said, that's what I do have in terms of my core picks as well as top GPP teams to stack for Monday, July 28th. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then once again, in the morning, I'll be listing my early morning weather report. They'll have any game that does have a double-digit chance of rain or higher, and then I will be listing as many of these starting lineups as I can get to throughout the afternoon and early evening. So definitely make sure that you are checking up down in that comment section so that you do have the most up-to-date and relevant information as we do head in the lock. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have MLB DFS in terms of the core pick videos, typically Monday through Friday. This week there will not be one for Thursday. It's like a 2.5 game slate, I would call it. 2 games in the afternoon, 1 early game. So definitely won't have one for that slate just in general. But Monday through Wednesday and Friday this week, definitely will have videos coming out. So definitely I'll look out for all those, as well as my CFL DFS video that does come out once a week, typically on Wednesdays. So definitely be sure to check that out if that's something you're into as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS and Prize Picks. If you're a brand new user on either of those sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks, it's 100% match up to $100, and then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section of this video or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. Be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS for Monday, July 28th.